Siegfried, the legendary hero of Nordic mythology, was the son of Sigmund and Siglud. After the death of his father in battle, Siegfried, still a child, was raised by a great and skilled blacksmith named Mime. Mime, who was a clever and skilled craftsman in making swords and tools, trained Siegfried and taught him the skills of a warrior and a blacksmith. Siegfried grew up alongside Mime and became a powerful and brave figure, making him one of the greatest heroes of his time. One day, while Siegfried and Mime were working in their forge, a traveler from distant lands arrived at the workshop to rest. This man, who had many stories from distant lands, spoke of a dragon named Fafnir. Fafnir had once been a great and courageous man who loved gold and wealth above all. He had been known as a mighty warrior and ruler in the northern lands, but due to his insatiable greed and desire for endless wealth, he fell victim to a dark curse. This curse was given to him by a wizard lord who promised that the more gold and jewels Fafnir gathered, the more power he would have. Fafnir, driven by greed and the allure of power, accepted the curse and transformed into a colossal and terrifying dragon. From that point on, Fafnir became a hideous creature, hoarding treasure deep in the mountains and forests, guarding his riches. Siegfried, fascinated by the story of Fafnir, decided to embark on a quest to defeat the dragon. Armed with a legendary sword Balmung, crafted by Mime, he set out. After days of traveling through dark forests and mountains, Siegfried finally reached Fafnir's lair. The dragon, with its enormous body and fiery eyes, rested next to its hoard of treasure. A fierce battle erupted between Siegfried and Fafnir. Using his skill with the sword and battle strategies, Siegfried fought with great courage and strength, eventually defeating Fafnir and slaying the dragon. After killing Fafnir, Siegfried decided to bathe in the dragon's blood, as it was believed to have healing and power-giving properties. Siegfried carefully immersed himself in the dragon's blood to protect himself from the wounds of future battles. However, at that moment, as Siegfried was bathing in the dragon's blood, a leaf from a nearby tree fell onto his shoulder. This accidental event caused the only part of his body that wasn't protected by the dragon's blood, his shoulder, to remain vulnerable. This small, unprotected spot became Siegfried's weakness, and it would later play a key role in his fate. After killing Fafnir, Siegfried claimed the dragon's vast treasure and the legendary sword Balmung. This sword granted him unparalleled power, ensuring that no enemy could defeat him in battle. Siegfried's fame and bravery quickly spread across various lands. In many cities and villages, his name was revered as a legendary hero who had slain a dragon and acquired an unparalleled sword. His renown even reached the courts of kings and great rulers. One day, when Siegfried was invited by Gunther, the king of the Nibelungs, to a feast at his court, he met Gunther's sister, Kriemhild, a beautiful and intelligent young woman. Their first meeting sparked an immediate and deep connection. Kriemhild, impressed by Siegfried's courage and strength, admired him, and Siegfried, captivated by her beauty and charm, quickly fell in love with her. As the days passed, their bond grew stronger, and a romantic relationship blossomed between them. Siegfried, now a renowned hero, could no longer resist Kriemhild's affection, and his heart was drawn to her. Kriemhild, too, became deeply in love with Siegfried, and her affection for him only grew stronger. Hagen, Kriemhild's brother, who was deeply jealous and dissatisfied with Siegfried's fame and power, became enraged by the situation between Siegfried and Kriemhild. Hagen, who considered himself a person of great power, could not accept that someone like Siegfried, who had quickly become beloved by the people and kings, was more powerful and popular than he was. However, Hagen did not know where Siegfried's weakness lay, so he decided to extract this information from Kriemhild, his sister, who was close to Siegfried. He approached Kriemhild and, using deception, told her that there were people who wanted to kill Siegfried. He asked her to help him and warn Siegfried of the serious threats against him. Hagen swore that he would never harm Siegfried and would protect him, but only if Kriemhild revealed Siegfried's weakness. He used a persuasive and exaggerated tone to gain Kriemhild's trust. Kriemhild, deeply concerned and not wanting any harm to come to her husband, was deceived. To reassure Hagen that she trusted him, she decided to sew a special garment for Siegfried. She sewed the garment with great care, placing a small, delicate flower over his shoulder, the exact spot where Siegfried's body was vulnerable and unprotected by the dragon's blood. This flower clearly indicated to Hagen that Siegfried's shoulder was the weak point. Kriemhild, carefully hiding the mark in the garment she made for Siegfried, told Hagen that this part of his body was weak. She believed that by doing this, she could protect her husband, not realizing that her actions would lead to betrayal and treachery. Now aware of Siegfried's weakness, Hagen decided to put his plan into action. One day, while hunting, Hagen and Gunther, along with others, set a trap for Siegfried. As Siegfried passed near a river, Hagen lay in wait. Unaware of the plot and trusting his friends, Siegfried continued his path. At that moment, Hagen ambushed him, striking him from behind with a sharp and deadly spear, hitting the vulnerable shoulder. The weakness that Siegfried had never known about was now exploited. Siegfried, initially shocked and in great pain, took some time to recover from the injury. But, despite the severe blood loss, he picked up his sword and stood firm against his attackers. With great bravery and strength, he fought back, defeating many soldiers with each strike. His enemies were terrified by his courage and limitless power, yet Siegfried stood strong. Although the heavy blood loss weakened him, Siegfried continued to fight. His strikes were precise and deadly, taking down his enemies one by one. But as time passed and the blood loss continued, his strength gradually waned and his body grew weaker. The final blows he dealt were delivered with less force. Exhausted and severely wounded, Siegfried eventually fell to the ground. In the end, after slaying many of his enemies and continuing to fight despite his injuries, Siegfried collapsed from the blood loss and weakness. His eyes, which still gleamed with bravery, gradually dimmed. He lay on the ground, and his life came to an end,